Okay, for this lesson I'm going to walk you through how to fill in the unit circle. And remember, we want to really get you guys to notice the patterns in this and not do so much memorizing. Otherwise, it's a lot to memorize. We'll start with the angles first. Here would be, I haven't moved any, so this would be 0 degrees. To go all the way over would be 180. And then to split the difference, straight up would be 90 degrees. And then straight down would be 270. Now the other angles that we use are typically our special right triangles, and when you were in geometry you learned mainly two special right triangles that we use, the 30, 60, 90 triangle and then the 45, 45, 90 triangle. And so the angles that we're going to use are the 30, the 45, and the 60. Those are our special right triangles that we use when we're doing trig, and those are the ones that we'll use all the way around the circle. The rest of the circle is just a reflection of this first quadrant. So if it's 30 degrees from here up to the first angle, then it's 30 degrees from here up to the first angle. So that one's going to be 150. Same with the 45. If it's 45 degrees to there, then it's 45 back to there. Or if you look at this, it's 15 degrees between lines, so 15 degrees would be 135. It's all just kind of patterns all around the circle. And this one would be the match to my 60 degrees, so that one's going to be 120. Filling in the rest would be 210. 225, and 240. And then the last quadrant would be 300, 315, and 330. So now we're going to talk about how all these angles are related to each other. So if you look at the unit circle, everybody is connected by its reflection. So the 30 degrees is always going to be connected with all of the other 30-degree angles. So all of these are 30 degrees away from the x-axis. So all of them are connected. Same with your 45s. All of the 45-degree angles, as we start to figure out values around the circle, will match each other. They're reflections of each other. So all of those will go together. And then all of your 60s will go together as well. So like I said, as we begin to fill in some of these other values, you're going to find out that these ones match each other. They're kind of reflections of each other. And that's why we kind of match them up. So 30 degrees, we're going to talk about how to do radians next. That's the next blank around the circle. And we know that this is 0 radians since I've gone 0 degrees. If I go all the way over to this side, we talked earlier about how this would become out to be pi, that it takes 3.14 radians to get there, and so that's pi. Straight up would be half of that, so pi over 2. And then straight down is kind of like 1 1/2 of a pi, so 3 pi over 2. When you do your first quadrant angles, the 30, the 45, and the 60, it's kind of like how many chunks does it take to get to 180? So how many 30s does it take to get to 180? It would take 6 of them. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I just want one of those kind of pi wedges. So this is pi over 6. It's kind of like 1/6 of pi. And pi is all the way to 180. So I just want 1/6 of it. In order to get yourself over to the next 30 degree, the one that's connected by the rectangle, you can do a couple of different things. One of the tricks I learned was you keep increasing the numerator. So 1 pi over 6, and then you would go to 2 pi over 6. You keep increasing them until you find fractions that don't reduce. So 2 pi over 6 reduces. 3 pi over 6 reduces, 4 pi over 6 reduces, 5 pi does not. So 5 pi is the next 30 degreeer. So kind of keep on doing that. 6 pi over 6 reduces, 7 pi does not. 8 pi over 6 reduces, 9, 10, and then 11 is your next one. So you're just looking for fractions that don't reduce. The kind of caveat to that is every fraction that did reduce, we're going to use it somewhere in the unit circle. So when you reduce 6 pi over 6, the 6's cancel, and that's just pi. So it's just a multiple somewhere of the 30-degree angle. Next we'll do the 45s in blue. So 45 degrees is 1/4 of pi. It would take 4 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4 to get all the way to 180 degrees. And we want just one of them. So that's going to be pi over 4. And then to get over here, you can continue the same pattern, just keep looking for fractions that don't reduce. You can also kind of say how many 45s does it take to get there. So it takes 1, 2, 3 45-degree angles. So if you kept doing that, here it takes 4, here it takes 5, so this is 5 pi over 4, and this one is 7 pi over 4. Notice how all the ones connected by the rectangle are also over 4 or over 6. They all have to match each other. They're just reflections over the circle. The last one is the 60-degree. This is pi over 3. There are 3 60-degree angles and 180 degrees. This is going to be 2 pi over 3. 3 pi over 3 reduces. 4 pi over 3 does not. And then 5 pi over 3. So it's kind of all about patterns. I really don't want you to try and memorize this. It would probably make you go crazy if you did. The last one we're going to do is exact values. And exact values come out of special right triangles and the unit circle. And so to do our exact values, we're going to focus on just the first quadrant. And after we have those values, we'll be able to repeat them all around the circle because these are all just reflections of each other. Okay? So the exact values are all a point. You're trying to graph a particular point. So you're trying to get to this point. So you're kind of traveling over and then up. And you're trying to figure out what is that going to take. In a different lesson, I talk about how you get to those numbers. So for this one, you're going to have to trust me that this is what they are. You'll have to find that other lesson if you're interested in that. Or look in your book. They show you how these numbers come out to be. Every one of these fractions is over 2, no matter what the degree measure is. And remember, this is a point, so this is like an x and a y, and I'm trying to figure out what it's going to take to move over and then up to get to that point. The way that I remember them, so kind of a memorization trick, is I start at the highest value on the inside, so the x, and it goes 1, 2, and 3, and then you hop back over and you go back up. So 1, 2, and 3. The only thing that changes is that you need to have a square root on top of every number. Square root of 1 is just 1, so we usually leave that 1. Square root of 2, square root of 3, and then this square root of 3. So those are the exact values. So if I did square root of 3 over 2 and I did it as a decimal, that's how far over I have to go, and then I have to go up 0.5. The 60-degree angle should be the flip, because in a 30, 60, 90 triangle, you're just looking at one angle or the other. They're just kind of reflections of each other. So this guy just got turned to be the other point. Okay? So going around the circle, we're just going to be able to take those numbers and just kind of repeat them around the circle. So every 30 degree will be square root of 3 over 2 and a half. The only thing that's going to change is if it's positive or negative. So as you go around the circle, you can fill in all the values. They all have to be the same. And then all you're going to do is just determine if it's negative or positive. In the first quadrant, both are positive. In the second quadrant, your x's are negative. In the third, both are negative. And in the fourth, your y's are negative. Again, with your 45-degree angles, everybody is square root of 2 over 2. The only thing you have to change is the negatives. X is negative there. In this one, they both are. And this one, oops, just the y is positive. Last one, the 60-degree angles. Again, they just get copied everywhere. So this is negative 1/2 and square root of 3 over 2. Negative 1/2, negative square root of 3 over 2. And 1/2, negative square root of 3 over 2. The last ones we have to do are the quadrant ones. So we start with 0 degrees, and this is in the unit circle, so the distance from here to the outside of the circle, or that radius, is a unit of 1. So to get over there, the point would be 1, 0. To get to the top would be 0, 1. To go left would be negative 1, 0. And to go down would be 0, negative 1. And that is how you fill out the unit circle. Really try to look at the patterns, and please don't try and memorize it. It's a lot to memorize.